Welcome to today's TESL Dialogue session.
Welcome, everybody.
Thank you for joining us.
As you learn with us today, we encourage you to reflect on the land we are on. While we are spread far and wide, the TESL Ontario office is located on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee. Today's session will be recorded. You can locate your audio and video controls at the bottom of your screen. You can also locate your chat feature at the bottom of the screen, chat with attendees, or ask our subject matter expert a question. Select everyone to chat publicly or an individual name to chat privately. To raise your hand, select Reactions and click Raise Hand. When a moderator calls on you, you can unmute your microphone. Polls will appear automatically on your screen. Select one response to submit your answer. If you can't see your polls, disable your pop-up blocker. Closed captioning is available through the live transcript feature. Please be respectful and courteous to our subject matter expert, our host and moderator, and other attendees during today's session. We hope you enjoy today's dialogue.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Loretta Vavla and I'll be the moderator for this session, and my colleague Melita Vrokela will be hosting the session for today, and our subject matter expert is Miguel Carranza. Melita, over to you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Pardon me for that. Thank you everyone for coming on this chilly afternoon. I'm here in Stony Creek and looks like we're going to have some SNOW. I'm getting ready. I'd like to give a short biography for Miguel Carranza, who has worked at the Universidad of El Salvador for 28 years. He prepares future teachers of English in his country. He holds a master's degree in science of education through a Fulbright scholarship, 2001 University of Kansas. He currently coordinates graduation processes at the Department of Foreign Languages. He has participated as a speaker at MEX TESL 2010, Panama TESL 2014, Honduras TESL HELTA 2018, Bolivia TESL Beta 2019, at Universidad Libre Colombia 2020, and has presented in local colleges of the country. So I welcome you, sir.
Thank you. A great pleasure to be here with you all. It's an honor to be here talking and sharing my experience with you. And today we'll focus on activities and my experience on how to help learners improve their proficiency, improve their competence. And I'd like to give you a little background about me. I prepare future teachers in my country. And in the context I teach, I realize that our learners, probably some of them achieve a B1 or a B2 level. Most of them probably a B1 level, which might not be enough for teachers of English. There are some exceptions. There might be some others that achieve a C1, but most of them probably be around B1 or trying to reach the B2 level. So that's been a problem that I've noticed, and it's probably because in my country, students don't have a lot of exposure, let's say, to talk to native speakers. Although recently they have improved the internet, they have improved these shows, the streaming, the different services. So there's more opportunities for them to improve. But the interaction, it's very little. And I noticed as a result that their speaking is not that developed, right? It's not that fluent. They have some problem with pronunciation. Their vocabulary is also limited, based mostly on what the textbook teaches, right? And probably teachers have not figured out a way how to help students, how to challenge them, right? So most of them just limit probably to the textbook and to the little vocabulary they receive, right? So at the end, it's not that helpful, or it's not an advanced level of English they have. And obviously, the Spanish pronunciation also affects their pronunciation. And if they have a strong influence of Spanish, and like I said, it's because of also little contact that our students may have in the country with native speakers. They might there might be some who speak English with other foreigners, but not necessarily native speakers of English, right? So as a result. As a result of that, I have tried to include some change. I made some changes, some activities in my classes that to help to challenge the students, to expose them, right, to different or to more challenging English or to authentic material used by native speakers, right? And the idea is for them to practice more freely, to have communicative activities, and so that engagement increases as well. So I try to find challenging and fun activities. If we can have the first question, Lolita.
Of course. And here's our first question and discussion. In your experience, sir, what factors affected positively and negatively students' development of their speaking skill?
And like I said, right, within the positive factors, the exposure to the language should be very important, right? And challenging activities or activities like the authors would say that include I+1 or challenging activities would probably help the students. But it's also important that they work in a nice environment, that they have a friendly atmosphere in the classroom, right? And some that might affect negatively would be, the lack of exposure. They don't get to practice too much with native speakers, and the teachers probably follow the textbook. That might not be enough for our context, which is an EFL context. But I'd like to hear from the participants, from you, from your experience, because I mean the realities are different, and I like to hear your experience or the factors that affect positively or negatively the development of the speaking skill.
Okay, thank you, Miguel. So you're more than welcome to share with us what are those factors. So how is your students' development of speaking skills affected positively or in a negative way? So L1, both positives and negatives. Okay, their first language. The students' attitudes towards language learning, exposure. Naina is saying that exposure affects it. Adele, you have your hands up. Sure, please feel free to turn on your audio and your video.
I found it beneficial to provide an activity of a conversation circle. Whereby a topic is given and the students endeavor then to have a conversation about it. In that setting, there isn't the same pressure, I think, as felt as when it's in a structured classroom setting. And the students tend to even help one another with pronunciation. But I find that they seem to be enthusiastic about that kind of activity.
Absolutely. Miguel, yes.
Interesting. Some of the participants are commenting that their students' confidence is a factor, right? That affects. If they get nervous, they will not speak much. Some they are saying that confidence, and some others are pointing out that not having enough practice, right? Not having enough practice, and sometimes we teachers probably just might follow the course book or the book and might not create those opportunities for the students to practice, right? To do it in a free manner, right? To do it freely, right? So let me see. Yeah, fear of making mistakes. Yeah, that's another one, right? They're not willing to stumble while learning. That's another one. Probably they want to be perfectionist, and they don't want to make mistakes. Peer pressure, it's about practice, students' confidence, right?
That's absolutely true, right? So especially when students are learning a second language, they are afraid to share their ideas, even though their sentences might have some errors in them. They are scared of those mistakes, right? And well, one way I deal with it is that I always tell my students, I love your mistakes, because that's how we learn. And you're not the only one learning, but others in our class are learning because of that same mistake, right? Because maybe others think that that's the right way to express themselves. So let's use these errors, mistakes you make as an opportunity to learn and improve ourselves. And we can see that confidence, nervousness, it really stops them. It affects them negatively for sure, right? But the willingness to participate regardless of making errors, right? Not focusing on being perfect, Carolyn, that's absolutely true. Peer pressure, right? So they are scared, they're afraid of what will others think of the mistakes they're making in their pronunciation, fear of making mistakes. Absolutely. So negative, John is saying, tendency of students to gravitate to their first language peers.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that's so true, right, Melita?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to go back to ask you, you said a friendly atmosphere. How do you define friendly atmosphere in a classroom setting?
Yeah, I wanted to point out that's that idea of creating a positive atmosphere where the students feel let's say, relaxed, but also they feel challenged, right? And that the teacher creates opportunities or creates this classroom in which everybody respects the opinions of others, right? The opinions are respected, are tolerated, and they should know that everybody is learning, and therefore making mistakes is normal, right? And we should welcome that, right? And students should not feel embarrassed because of these mistakes, right? They should feel motivated, and they should learn from this. Then feedback is also important, and this friendly or this understanding teacher should take into account students' feedback in order to help the students learn, right? And to continue learning, to continue improving in the English language. So a good environment is important. A good positive environment is in the classroom where there's respect. It's a cordial environment, and where students can feel free to participate, but everybody is respecting and helping each other, as some of you pointed out, right? That idea of helping everybody improving their own mistakes. It should be.
Can I say something?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, actually, when we look back to some research about L1 and L2, research has found that if a learner is not competent in his L1, then this will affect any acquisition of a new L2, right? And when the other thing is that when they start, talking in the L2, their problems is that they start an immediate translation from their repertoire of L1 into L2 right away, without realizing the corresponding registers and linguistic correspondence from L1 to L2. That's why they become reluctant. That's why they become hesitant to speak the L2 fluently and accurately.
And I've heard that it's true also in writing, right? They say if you are good at writing in your own native language, you can transfer that skill into writing good compositions in English, right? But yeah, I agree with you, Mahmoud, that this can affect, right? The level of literacy that one has in the native language can also affect the level of fluency or competence that you can have in the L2 language. Right? So yeah, it needs to be dealt with, right? And therefore, he first needs to improve his native language. But in this case, if he is living in the context where he has to speak probably more the foreign language or the second language than the native language, yeah, it's more complicated, and probably he will improve. He will become more proficient in the second language than in the first language.
Great. Thank you. Wonderful. Shall we go on to the next introductory question then? Okay. What are your thoughts on authentic materials? How often do you use them in your classes?
At first, I was afraid of using authentic materials in the classes because of the challenges, right? And we don't want to be put on the spot, like, what is the meaning of this word, right? And particularly when you read articles, magazines, and they ask you, teacher, what does this mean, right? But I think I lost that fear eventually, and then I tried to encourage it. And sometimes it can be frustrating, right? Authentic materials can be frustrating, but they can also be very beneficial. And they are very beneficial because we're talking about exposure. We're talking about challenging students, and this can come in different ways, right? It can come in through listening, and it comes through reading, right? And then we should find material that they like, topics that they like, and then bring these topics to the class for them to feel motivated, right? For them to get to read them or get to use this material, and eventually they will improve their language. And I have been doing it in my classes. I try to do it as much as I can, and I think it has good results. But let's see your answers. It's okay for a teacher to say they exactly, right? Yeah, it's okay to say, but yeah, we sometimes can be a little not proud, but don't feel like to be on that spot, right? On that part. Okay, the Ivy says, I love them, but it's not always easy to use them. That's true, right? So you need to find your own repertoire of authentic materials, and you should like cure them, like what would be good for the students to use or to deal with, right? Authentic materials, news, advertising, circulars. Yeah, exactly, right? And then the question is also, right, how often do you use them in class? Well, someone said, right, that they don't use them frequently, but yeah, like I said, I have become like a big fan of them. Yeah, that's true, Myra. They're better for higher levels, right, or intermediate or higher levels. Some people argue that you can use in basic level, but the learners cannot do much, right? Well, at a basic level, just to expose them, right? But then again, I think they can also, sometimes you can also frustrate the learner, right? When they see that they don't understand much. But yeah, maybe from intermediate to higher levels, they would benefit the most.
Can I say something?
Yes, Mahmoud.
Yes, as it is said, we cannot take the class to the world, but we can bring the world to the class, right?
Yes.
And which means that, as you just mentioned about the different levels. So the lower the levels are, the more authentic materials would be like realia, right? And more, more concrete, things that they can touch and smell and see and so on, right? And the higher we go, the more abstraction the more abstract we are, right? So I saw one of the colleagues, mentioning Morel.ca. So you are talking like about university students or ESL learners, and they go and look into those websites and learn and have this kind of self-learning, right? But nonetheless, it is very crucial to know materials will be authentic as long as they end up in a kind of result for the learners, right? Because this is how we can measure authenticity. If it gives back its dividends and the students learn.
That's the idea, right? Of challenge the learner, and then yeah, we will have a learning through that. Highlighting certain sections only. Okay, Sandra, interesting.
And I agree, right? Because John is saying that Morel.ca is good for all levels. Well, I think that every material is good depending on how you're using it, right? So it might be a text that's really complicated and there might be a lot of language there, but it's how you use it that matters, right? And you can adapt it based on the levels you have, the level of students you have in our class. So, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And then again, it's not a matter of bringing the authentic material that the teacher likes, right? Because I may like some topics and I bring them, but students might not find them interesting, right? And I think Sandra Smith pointed out it's materials that which students are request, right, or they like, right, and therefore they will be more invested into this material, into their learning, right? So that's the idea, to motivate them to read books as well, right? In our culture, our students do not read much from high school, but then when they come to college, I sort of motivate them to read for the English classes, right? To find books that they will like them, and some of them have been successful. Not everybody, but some of them.
That's a great point. Also, to your point, Loretta, sometimes I feel I'm an actress on stage performing to motivate students to do something. And sometimes I'm good, and sometimes I'm not that great. I did a lesson for 2 different levels. And the first level, superb. I almost, took an applause. But the second level, not so good. So it's all in the presentation and the energy that we exude as well. When someone is happy, they will learn.
When they are motivated, they will learn.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
When it matters to them, they will learn. So Miguel touched on that point, that it should be something that's of interest to them. So why not ask our students to bring authentic materials themselves, something they're interested in, and bring it into class. Adele, you have your hand up. Please feel free to join us.
Yes, what I found is that CBC in Canada, Canadian Broadcast Corporation, is really quite excellent, because there's a lot of their programming and news reports that you can get in print as well as the audio version. And I've had used both with students, depending on the subject matter and the length, depending on the student, the learner level. But just to illustrate, we recently had our municipal elections. And, students that may be eligible to vote, but they're reluctant to vote because they don't know what the issues are. They don't know who the candidates are. But, it takes a bit of work to find the two matching, the written and the, and the audio report. But it helps them to get better connected with the community that they're living in, and they connect with that. But the regular ongoing program with CBC is very good that way, and I have used it and provided students with the links and the written material, etc., that they can go back to that later on their own or share it with others. But I found CBC to be really an excellent source of authentic material.
Fabulous. Thanks for sharing.
And there's a CBC app that students can also have on their own phone, right? And easily access anytime.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Adele. Miguel?
Someone asked in the chat, what they say that they are useful, but the point is choosing the right authentic material, right? Finding the right, that can be probably challenging for us as teachers, right? But I think topics such as technology, such as environment, such as the weather are always interesting and are always in vogue. And I think they can be, in my experience, I have used them, and everybody seems to be engaged in reading about the weather, the environment, right, the future. So these topics, I think, are sort of not neutral, but they can be motivating for the learners, right?
Absolutely, yes. And there are so many other topics that we can find as authentic materials, like Remembrance Day yesterday, Indigenous issues. So they are very current, and that, of course, affect our students on a daily basis. So why not bring them into classroom? Absolutely. We have Avi saying even dramas work well. Avi uses dramas a lot. If you could share more, that would be lovely. Dialogues.
That would be great, yeah, to read about, to learn more about the dramas, how she uses the dramas, right? Probably sort of plays.
So how can we use authentic materials in dramas, Avi? We would love to hear from you, because that's an interesting element.
Hi, I'm sorry.
Hi
I
there.
can't talk too loudly. So sometimes I use dramas, for example, Desperate Housewives. That one's very interesting, and I think they've got like 8 seasons, so it's like good enough for students to go over and watch again and again. It's also based on real contexts, right? So they actually have a lot of and a lot of cultural stuff involved as well. So when I was teaching in the classroom, I found that teaching the students how to deal with register is one of the most difficult things, I would say. But with drama context, it's just easier for them to understand. And also they can use they can try to imitate, right? So it actually improves their pronunciation as well. So I like dramas.
Actually, I recently had a student, was my assistant, and her English was so good. And I asked her, where did you learn English? Where did you study English? Did you go to a language school? And she said, no, teacher, I watch all episodes of Friends. And I said, and I believed her because she was so good, so fluent, and she using all this language, even informal language, and using it. Well, I mean, she was very devoted and a little introvert to her personality, but she was very good. But yes, like AP pointed out, yeah, these shows on TV can help.
Oh, yes. That's how I learned Spanish or Italian. So that helps, right?
Adele wants to say something also.
Adele, was the hand raised from before, or would you like to add something?
No, I'm sorry. I forgot to lower it.
No worries.
Thank you for pointing that out.
No worries. Thank you.
Friends.
Okay. Right. Friends, right? That's a series. Yes. Naina is saying I've experienced this as well, where when I was facilitating conversation groups, one of my students indicated that she improved her English by reading magazines and books, right? The stories we hear from our students and the resources they use, right? They're so resourceful. Like Avi is saying, I couldn't speak the language before I moved to Canada, but it is through movies, through TV, right?
It's a matter of finding the right book, or a book that will interest you, or a show that it will interest you. But I think also with this student, we talk about Friends, and I say, but there are some episodes that are very weird, or the language they use. And she said, yes, teacher, some things are some comments they make a little bizarre, but then you have to be careful, right? Also with those messages they send. But the language was very useful for her, right?
Can I just make?
Oh yes, Mahmoud.
I know it could be a kind of a humor between the L1 and L2. So when the newcomers they come to the Canada and they got confused between their L1 culture and linguistic correspondence. So when one of them just went out from the meeting with immigration officers, and then when he is out and they say, what's up? Then he started looking into the roof.
Yes. Literal translation.
The joke, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a joke, right? So this joke, it denotes something, that when they are like, in their original language, they don't have, this does not exist, right? So when the L2 is going to be very challenging. And when you mentioned the different topics that students can talk about and you bring to the class, whether just global warming or weather or this and that, yes, they can be used for different levels, but we cater and we rectify things according to the level. So we resort to choose the best and corresponding lexicon when we use for the higher levels, medium level, or lower level. Still, we are in the same topic about the global warming or weather or any other related topic that might be interesting to them. I just want to bring this up.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, particularly these readings will be for intermediate or higher level, advanced levels, right? They could handle that, not for basic level, definitely. Yeah, but it's a challenge, and the idea is also to help them help them understand the meaning, or help them understand the main ideas. And sometimes they struggle getting the main idea, right? but I think it's a matter of practice and exposing them to.
Yeah, yes, and even when it comes to drama, and you teach them drama, and when you just apply the role play, right, in like a kind of dramatizing things, dramatizing roles inside the classroom, right, and whether it's through like a dialogue or conversation, or this and that, and giving them roles, then they can practice more, and they will be more confident, and they can, vent out what they have from inside to their audience.
Interesting.
Lovely discussions.
Really nice.
Thank you. Okay.
Maya is pointing out that the students request that she teaches them idioms in classes, right? And I mean, you can teach them, but of course they need to be within a context, right? For them to understand them better, for them to get them better. And sometimes I have noticed that in the articles or in a magazine, you have some idioms, right? And they say, well, this will be very appropriate. And sometimes I try to find like an article that may have one or two idioms, and sometimes I point them out to them. Okay, take a look at this. Sometimes because the translation is not literal, they will not get them exactly right. But then I like to expose them, and I try to help them understand it through the context, right? What they think the idiom would mean. But of course, probably I also taught it before. But because without context, it will be difficult, I think.
Hey, Maya, you have your hand up.
Yes, I would like here to talk about this point that Mr. Miguel just talked about. Yes, the idioms, what they wanted, like I was asking them, what would you like to learn more about? When they talked about the idioms, they felt that this would make their speech more fluent and they would feel more natural. So what I did actually is that I'm using only the idioms that are connected to a funny picture, like someone pulling someone's leg, let's say, okay, or speak of the devil. So I use these, and then we try to guess what the picture means, and I ask them to put it like, and then after they guess the meaning from a sentence, so I'm putting it in a context, and then I encourage them to use it in class, and I give them a point if at any point during the session they find a time where they can use it. So that's how I'm trying to incorporate it into the lesson, because I cannot just, it's very rare that I find idioms in the book.
That's so true. And then our students do encounter those idioms in their everyday life when they go to a store and purchase something, right? They will be hearing, listening, right? Those idioms.
Exactly.
So it's a survival tool, right, for them.
Yeah.
So they definitely need to learn phrasal verbs and idioms because it's a daily communication issue. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Maya. It's time now to move on to our next question. So Melita.
Oh, this is an interesting one. Have you ever used board games in class to promote speaking? And which games and what level are the students?
In my case, I have been using it recently. Particularly, they bring a lot of used clothes and used board games in some stores, like thrift stores. They come here, they sell them in the country, and I have found them at a very cheap prices. Like for $2, I found this box of taboo cards, taboo game, and I found several, and I have used them in my classes. And believe me, the motivation it improves, and there are a lot of benefits with this. And so, yes, I have been using it. In which games, right? What levels? Yeah, then again, most of them intermediate or advanced. Probably some of them are at a basic level, but not all of the games are possible to use. But I want to listen. I want to read your comments, and then I'll share with you some of the games that I use, some of the board games that I use in my classes. But I think Melita may have also some of hers, or she might know some.
I may know one or two. I've used Uno. At the lower levels, so identifying numbers, the idea of reverse the role or miss a turn. So those are all wonderful little skills to use. But they love Uno. They really do. It's simple and it's fun, and it fills time as well for them. And they take it home and play with their kids, which is wonderful as well. So everyone interacts. If you haven't tried it, please have a shot at that one. It's a great one.
Right,
Thank
Susan
you.
is saying that we can make our own board games.
Mhm.
Susan, if you could share more, that would be interesting. Have you tried this yourself or?
Yeah, sure. One thing you can do, I made a board game for directions. So, it was like going around the town and the car and the game pieces were like a car or a vehicle. So, you'd pick up the person would be maybe running errands. You're going to stop at this store, you're going to stop in front of this store, you'll go past, past the post office, you'll turn right, you'll turn left. So that's just one idea.
That's fun. Your students should have
Fabulous.
enjoyed it so
Very
much.
creative, right?
Mhm.
Very good for prepositions too.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah.
We can't hear you, Susan. Yeah. Okay. But that was great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing it with us. Maya is saying I use some downloadable board games for prepositions. So board games that you can download. Interesting. Please feel free to share any apps you use, any in particular tools you use to make this easy for everybody and to help us. So great ideas. Thank you so much.
I happen to have one more, which was a success as well, is Simon Says. And that is with their listening skills and their understanding. It's not a board game, but it is a game that motivates them, gets them up and competitive. So yeah, try that one as well, please.
Following the TPR, right? TPR.
Total physical response.
Yep, that's right. You got it.
Yes. Got them moving. Wordle. Ivy is saying Wordle.
Nice.
I've seen many teachers using it themselves, not just for their students, because it's a fun competitive game. Hangman for new vocabulary. Charades.
Charades is a great one. Pictionary.
Pictionary.
Yeah, definitely.
I Spy is good for lower levels. Absolutely.
I Spy. Yeah. I have this question that I want to ask you. It's from this board game. It's called Loaded Questions, and they come in different sections. The first one is hypothetical, and it teaches the second conditional. This is the question. If you created a new flavor of ice cream, what would it be?
Nice.
What would be is the question. And this one is a little personal, but if you had a tattoo, where would it be and what would it be? If you had a tattoo, where would it be and what would it be? You know, maybe if I had one, it would be somewhere here. Maybe I would use my university's not logo, but it's it's actually Athena, the goddess of wisdom, right? Would you rather? Yeah, I used would you rather, Sandra, and it's fun, and they get to practice this type of conditional, these questions, and it's material used by native speakers, and and the motivation gets high, and the engagement for the class, gets high. I was reading another question here. Is what celebrity makes you glad you are not a celebrity? What celebrity makes you glad you are not a celebrity? So these are some of the questions that appear in this box of loaded questions. And I have students work in groups, and in groups of 3 or 4. When actually I use them when we were face to face. Groups of 3 or 4, and they have fun. And then when they run out of the question or the cards, they would exchange them with other groups. But they would get to practice, and they would improve their speaking, their fluency by asking these types of questions, their grammar as well. And they would it says fill time, and it would also improve their learning.
Thank you for sharing those questions with us, Miguel.
I don't know if you're familiar with this one, apples to apples.
Apples to apples.
No, okay. This one says, let me see that. Okay, I would never order all you can eat blank, and you have to finish it. I would never order all you can eat blank. and then you will give me the answer. It's supposed to be something funny, right? I would. So it's I would never order all you can eat shrimps. Much, right? So, how would you answer it, Loretta? I would never order all you can eat.
Cakes, because it's too much sugar.
Yeah, that's true, right? How about this one? I would be disappointed if I open a treasure chest and found. I would be disappointed if I found fake bills or fake money. This is a treasure chest, right?
That's fun. Great game. Yes, it gets them talking, as Naina is saying, their vocabulary, their critical thinking, their imagination, right? So the game is called Apples to Apples, right?
Apples to Apples, yeah. But this one is freestyle. Freestyle, yeah.
Okay.
And like I said, I have been very lucky because, well, actually, I bought them before the pandemic, and I bought them for $2-3. These used boxes, but actually some of them were new. It's just maybe they were old, right? But I have another one. If we have some time. This one is what am I? What am I? Right? I'm supposed to be like an object, right? And the first clue is I'm a type of beverage. I'm a type of beverage. I'm added to color. I'm dark in color. Some prefer my brewed alternative. I like a good stir. I'm popular in the morning. Does anybody have the answer? So, and the students, I have them. I distribute them. It's coffee. Yeah, it's coffee. But I haven't given you the other clues. It's coffee, yes, Shanika. But it's instant coffee. Some like me with milk and sugar. What am I with the initials IC? I found loaded questions logo on Amazon. Is it on the go or junior?
My eyes searching. The game's already. That's great.
Yeah. Loaded question. I think it's on the go or
junior. There should be two versions, right?
Maybe I bought just the one for juniors. I don't remember exactly. Yeah. But we gotta be careful. Sometimes there are the adult versions, right? Maybe we would want to use those in class, and we just want to use the wholesome version, right?
And we can't forget Scrabble. Scrabble is always a great
one. Scrabble, yeah. So this one is what am I? And I have the other cards that are from who am I?
Who am I?
Yeah. Want to try this one? We have some time.
Yes, let's do it.
I'm a famous man from history. I was born in Corsica in 1769 and died in 1821. My military battles were well documented. I was the greatest military genius of the 19th century. For 20 years, my armies defied all of Europe. I declared myself emperor. I was called the little corporal. Oh, yes, Napoleon, they got it. Susan got it, and Caroline. Yeah.
Nice.
We have
Napoleon.
Great students.
Yes.
Brilliant students.
And then again, I distribute them, and then they get to play them. And this is from a board game called Who Am I or What Am I? Yeah, these are the parts, but I think it had a different title.
Okay, so we had Who Am I? What am I?
Yeah.
Apples to Apples.
Loaded questions.
Good.
And there's the taboo.
A taboo one.
A taboo one, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. Good. So everybody can have a look and maybe explore these board games and use them. Make our lessons fun, right? And Avi was saying earlier, how can we make learning languages fun? Well, this is a great way to do it.
Exactly. The motivation goes high, their engagement,
retention.
retention, and they improve also the community in the classroom. They get, and I ask them to interact with different partners, right? They can get to share also, right?
Absolutely. And we get our students to speak, right? Because that's the thing we were struggling earlier on, to motivate them to participate. And if it's a relaxed atmosphere, if it's a fun game, they feel that, yes, everything is acceptable and I can share my thoughts here, right?
Exactly.
Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Miguel. Great. So Melita, we can move on to our next question.
What are some activities you use to promote speaking in different levels, and what makes them successful?
The debates, right, are always useful. Role plays, some presentations too, right, talking about different. Nina said, fill in the blanks for beginners.
Nice.
Right. So if you could share with us, what are some activities? So Miguel just shared the list of games, of board games that Miguel usually uses. And they've been successful so far, right, Miguel?
Yes.
How
yes,
have your students received them?
Yeah, they welcome them. They love it, and they like the fact that I use different in a given course. Oh yeah, now they don't know, right? It's it's a new one, and they like it, and the motivation gets high. But like I said, it's a sort of a collection that I have, and then I try to use them based on the contents I'm teaching, right? But of course, yes, I teach my class. I follow the presentation practice procedure, but then I give them extra practice when I have some extra time, or when the class is getting a little bored, right? I use it.
Maya is saying 1 minute speaking. If you could share more with us, Maya, that would be welcomed.
Yes. By the way, I was just preparing the PowerPoint for the game now before this presentation. So what I was searching online, because I wanted to do something fun for them speaking on Tuesday. So I found a way where I prepared 12 topics, 12 questions, and I'm going to put them in groups of 3 or 4. I'm going to give them dice. Okay, so they have to roll the dice, and according to the number, they're going to have to speak for 1 minute nonstop with no hesitation, without and the other group members will have to check if the group, the member did correctly or not, so they get a point for that or not. And of course, I chose topics that are fun to talk about for a minute, so it's not going to be boring. And I'm going to put the timer on the board, so also this will be, I guess, I hope so, it's going to be motivating.
Thank you.
I have seen that activity, yeah, and it gets really interested in as soon as like to talk, for 1 minute, which topics which are not so complicated, yeah.
Yes, exactly, fun ones.
And that might utilize vocabulary we've just taught them, right? So topics we have already discussed in class, so that they feel empowered and they have the tools to use in their presentations, for sure. Great idea, Maya. Thank you. Sandra is saying topics that students are interested in will always promote engagement, and that's absolutely true. Great. Avi says, I do role plays and debates for advanced levels. That's role plays and debates are really suitable for advanced levels and competitive enough, especially debates. Homera is saying famous quotes related to the topic of the day. Carolyn is saying, I have them share a recipe, home remedies, or present their home country or town, and that's something that interests them, right?
Home
Great
remedies.
ideas.
Home remedies should be interesting, right? To hear different medicine people can get, or from different countries, and some of them, probably be successful.
Pair working and group activities for Nina. And as Miguel said, we can always change who the partners are, so that we can build that sense of community in our classrooms. John is sharing on Zoom. Sometimes I ask students to just talk about anything. and I go on mute with no video. There's usually awkward silence at first, I guess, but then they can really get going, right? I make comments and corrections on Zoom chat as they're talking. So as a teacher, I get out of the way, right? The stage is theirs, right? Student-centered at its best. Thank you, John. Class recipe book, Susan. Wow, that should be fun. I think everybody would love to have a recipe of their own in the class book. Great. If you could share more, that would be interesting. Thank you.
Oh yeah, it's always a real favorite. It's really good because they get to share something that's from their home country. And they're using numbers, measurements. It's just always been a hit. And then I'll make the book up of that. Just make the photocopies so everybody has the book. Yeah, and I guess if budget is an issue and you can't do it, you could always scan it, and then everybody can at least have the PDF.
That's lovely. See? So if you don't have resources, a PDF version is for free, right? So it takes time to prepare, but no costs attached. So thank you. That's great, Susan. I would love to be a student who has the recipe of the class recipe book, right?
Right? Who wouldn't?
That's
great.
Yeah, and then you know what? It's also kind of a memento of that time in their life, as they move on into another level or off into the workplace. It's just sort of a fond memory of their fellow students.
Absolutely. Beautiful indeed.
Nina is also pointing out that she likes to have students describe pictures, for lower levels, and it can be also for higher levels, right? Plus, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? There's your saying, right? But I think the power of a picture, is very important, and you can use it, yes, in classes. But then we need to find some other ways, to vary, right? To vary the use of the pictures. And with talking with other colleagues, of course, you can get more ideas about how to use pictures for the classes.
Joining our TESL dialogue sessions, you can get plenty of ideas, right?
Plenty, so many.
Totally.
Thank you, everybody. This was amazing. That's great. It's time now to move to our breakout room activity, right, Melita?
You've got it.
Okay, so let's have a look at our breakout room question. Okay, so the question is, what is the main takeaway from this session? So let's think about everything we talked so far, and you'll be given 10 minutes to go into your breakout rooms with one another, have a conversation, and then we'll see each other after 10 minutes, and you will all share what you discussed and what the takeaways were from the session today. So I'm opening all the rooms, and please join.
Good luck, everyone.
Yes, enjoy those minutes with each other. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Lovely to see you back, and we hope you enjoyed your conversation with one another. So here we have Miguel's email address, should you wish to contact him in the future. And so let's hear from our groups. In room 1, we had Adele, Madadi, Shanika, and Susan. So if any one of you could share, what is it that you are going to take away from this session? It would be lovely to hear from you. Or what is it that you discussed? Please share your ideas with us. So Adele, Shanika, and Susan.
I think it's Adele here. We talked about the many resources and how some teachers are more creative in using authentic material, and some teachers tend to use the prefabricated ones. But I guess we agreed that as teachers, it takes an enormous amount of time to prepare our materials. And so that I think I expressed and said sometimes these games or the prepared material, it can take a little bit of pressure off. But I think Susan concluded, and Susan, you might want to talk about this, the challenges that are facing new immigrants are not just language.
Yes, we were just talking about, thank you, Adele. And also, how can somebody learn when they have insecure housing, when they have food insecurity? It's kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So this is affecting immigrants. It can be affecting international students in particular. But I think we all agree that this has been a really great session, so many great resources. And actually just wondering, is there any way that the chat could be saved and maybe emailed to the participants today? Thanks.
Thank you so much for your discussions, really. And you touched on a very sensitive point, and we fully agree that there are lots of needs for sure. And we have to bear in mind who our students are and the challenges they're facing when they're moving to a new country. Well, I'm an immigrant myself in Canada, and I know, and I always tell that to myself, even though it's been years now, I still remember, and I still try to remember. I try not to forget, because that's who I have in my classrooms, right? So great point, Susan and Adele and Room One, that's absolutely true. But some of our teachers are immigrants too, right? And I'm sure I'm not the only one. So we're all going through struggles, and finding ready-made materials could be the easy thing, right? Rather than working with authentic one, but maybe changing and trying one thing at a time, baby steps, that would help. Absolutely. So Susan will talk with our TESL Ontario team whether we could copy the chat, because the list of resources was really great. I have written them down as well. So we'll try to send it to our team as well, so that they could find a way to email it to you. Great. Thank you so much. Okay. Anybody else from Room One that would like to share other resources? Miguel is ready to share other resources with us. So Miguel, if you could email those to me and Melita, we can easily share those resources with everybody, but you're always free to email Miguel directly. Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Good. So let's move on to Room 2 then. I don't see any hands up. Thank you so much, everybody. So Room 2, we had Avi, Helen, Homie, Chan, John, and Sally. So anyone from Room 2 that would like to share, what is it that you discussed with one another? Do you have any volunteers from your Room 2? John?
I could start off.
Thank you.
We all really appreciated the resources that we shared, the especially games, videos, dramas, this sort of thing. One of the things that came up was, when you break out students into small groups, is it better to have them at the same level? Or, if you've got if you have a multi-level class or conversation group, or even in a, same level, there's always a discrepancy in sub-levels or whatever. Do you put them at the same level when you break out, or do you have advanced and beginner, what dynamic works best? So that was one thing that came up. And the other thing came up that I remember is that we'd love to find out more about board games. We can use it. And maybe, Miguel, you have some further ideas that you can share with us. So anyone else want to jump in?
Thank you so much, John. Miguel, anything you'd like to add?
I will be sharing the list of games. Actually, let me see, there's one I didn't use. This one is called Wikipedia. Wikipedia, and one question, it says, the oldest Homo sapiens fossils dating 160,000 years ago were discovered in what African nation? Zimbabwe, Nigeria, or Ethiopia? What's the answer?
Interesting.
And then how many countries are there in Africa? So they ask you these questions, right? So
Nice.
they, so this
History
is
and geography.
Wikipedia, it's it's more sort of academic oriented, right? Yeah, yes, and I have some others, but I brought just like 5 or 6 today. But I'll be happy to share some others that can be very helpful. There's one board game called Family Feud. Family Feud. It's from an American program, and they turn it into authentic material and into a board game. Right? They played in class. Like they ask 100 Americans or North Americans what is the common thing they order for lunch, right? And then they have the list, right? And the students just have to give you the vocabulary or the ranking, right? Or the top one answer, right? And it's fun, yeah. And I've used them, and it's culture, right? Trivia Pursuit, that one is too,
Well, Adele is sorry she doesn't have it anymore, so she got rid of that. So yes. Next time I throw out games, I'll make sure I don't need them for my students. Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Miguel. And thank you, John, for summarizing what you discussed in your group. That's amazing. Lovely. So let's move on to room 3. We had Aran, Caroline, Delroy, Homera, and Nina. I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing your names. My apologies. So anyone from room 3 that would like to share your thoughts? Nina? Yes, we can't hear you. If you could unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry about that, guys.
No worries. Thank you.
Yeah, so we were discussing that overall it was a very good presentation. We got a lot of resources. We learned a lot of new things about resources and authentic material. So one of them said that it was games are not only fun, but they test 4 skills, either listening, reading, writing, and speaking. One of us said it was there were very interesting ideas, and knew some of them before, but still appreciated it. And it could be adjusted based on level. One said it's worth something, extra new ideas to expand on how you were doing. One said that it was very interesting about recipes, lower level. There may be differences of verbs language. And I thought that it was very interesting on how to give directions, how to use prepositions. And I was thinking that a lot of the games would help with listening and speaking skills and reading skills. Communicate, help people. Okay, yeah, that's it.
Yes. Great.
Thank you.
No problem.
Very organized, Nina. Noted down everything. So thank you.
Yeah.
Got all the details.
Anything else from room 3? Anything anyone would like to add? No? Can we move on? Okay. So room 4, we had Carol, Mahmoud, Maya, and Sandra. Yes, Sandra, please go ahead.
Well, I don't really want to follow after that last one. It was very organized. I didn't take notes.
No worries.
Okay.
No pressure.
Okay. There's a lot of pressure. I don't know what you're talking about. We were just discussing similar to what the other groups were saying, that how we're just kind of encouraged and motivated to figure out how to use games and in a very practical but fun way, and even how to make it adjust or modify to fit our curriculum that we have to cover, but still bring in the game concept. And we're just discussing how we can make it work for different levels and how we would do that. And one of our group members was talking about how even the recipe book idea can be used in a with different levels, like some of them could probably write the recipe completely themselves, and other ones have more of a fill in the blank concept. And so we were just really encouraged by the different ideas that were out there of how to bring games into the mix, as well as the just making it work for different levels of students.
And that's amazing. That's why we meet here, right? That's why we have this platform. So thank you so much, Sandra. And thank you so much, everybody who contributed. Susan, your recipe book is a hit. Thank you for sharing it.
I did have one question. Are you going on to other groups now first?
We're done with the group, so the floor is yours. Feel free.
I had a question. I think I might have even sent it before today, but my question is, how do you really encourage the use of speaking English in groups of, like where there are groups of L1 learners in the classroom, or even in, you're in a different environment, right? Such as Miguel, if we're teaching in a different country, how do you really encourage the English and not just reverting to the L1? Thanks.
Mm-hmm. I think that the creation of this positive environment, right, where students feel relaxed, and but at the same time, I want them to speak, to learn, to improve, right? And then probably the exposure, or maybe this game, these cards, this interesting question that I also find the most appropriate for them. Say, now this question would be good. This one would motivate them, right? So I try to find questions, materials that would interest them and that would make them talk. And then I have them work in small groups of 3, groups of 4, and then they exchange. They go to a different with different partners, and that's how it has helped me. That I've seen some improvement.
Thank you, Miguel. Great, Carol, you have your hand up. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I taught for a year and a half in Indonesia, and it was all L1 students in the class. One thing I found was that if they were very interested in the topic, it was much harder for them to stay in English. So I had to choose topics that weren't too not interesting, but too passionate, that they weren't passionate about, so that they could step back and not get into speaking Indonesian too much.
That's hilarious. Because they had so much to say that they just couldn't wait to think in English, but use their L1. Absolutely true. Susan, yes. Thank you, Carol, for sharing that.
And I think John had a really good question when he was talking about what he talked about in his group. Could you just speak a little more about groupings of levels in multi-level classes when you're doing the games, please? Thanks.
I think we would have to experiment and probably vary the grouping. Sometimes we can try and see if they're at the same level, they will work, but sometimes I also try to mix them, right? Probably, let's say, 1 weak student with 2 or 3 strong ones, but then that's why it's important to have this nice environment, right? This respectful environment. And if we have it, they can get along and the others can try to help them. But also we have to be monitoring, making sure that everybody is taken into account. But yeah, I try to vary the grouping, right? But also think ahead, right? Maybe, okay, these 2 and this one, before actually doing the grouping, I think of who would make a nice group, who would do a good job arranging or working as teammates, right? So I think ahead of this grouping or assigning them, I think ahead of who could work well with each other, and then I probably move them, and I think about that. Yeah, maybe sometimes with the same level would be okay, but some of the times I try to challenge them and I try to help the ones that need the most help. And maybe the other ones would also be nice and help others that need that help. So that's what I would do.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Miguel. Yeah, so it's a matter of level. Sometimes it's also a matter of character, because usually strong students will take over the discussion and will not give space to lower level students, or the other way around. What I also do is that I assign roles to students, like a note taker, a speaker for the group, so that everybody, and they rotate these roles in their groups, so that I make sure that everybody gets a chance to go through through all these roles I have created for the group work. So, and trying it out, as Miguel is saying, and getting to know our students each day and more, that definitely helps.
Yeah,
great
sure.
questions and answers. So thank you everybody. Do we have any further questions that we'd like to address? Please feel free to do so. Otherwise, thank you for attending our session. PD certificates will be mailed to you using the email address you used to register for our session.
Thank you.
It will take up to 7 days for you to receive your PD certificate, so please be patient. You will also be mailed our survey within a few business days, so please make sure that you answer that survey, because it will help us improve our sessions, and it will also tell us your interests. We have 2 upcoming events. We have a TESL dialogue on December 6th from Dr. Lynn Zimmerman on fostering independent learners. There's also a TESL webinar, Designing Visually Successful Materials for Learners, by Gabriela Kletskova. It's a TESL dialogue session we had on designing visually successful materials, but of course, Gabriela will be sharing new information for all of you. So that was all for today, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. We're everywhere now. So thank you for spending a Saturday with us, and see you in our next sessions. Miguel, Melita.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wish you well. Keep well, everyone.